Welcome to the whole meeting of City of Beaumont City Council for Tuesday, April 18th, 2023 here at 5 p.m. I'll call the meeting to order and I'll begin with our land acknowledgement. Pardon me. We are pleased to be here today on Traditional Territory Treaty 6. We acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all of Canada's First Peoples, whether they be a First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. As we gather here today in the Traditional Territory of Treaty 6, we acknowledge that we are all treaty people and have ongoing responsibility to protect and honor all of life. And this evening, Councilman Newkirk is not able to attend this evening. Usually he chairs the Committee of the Whole. I'll do it in his absence. Councilor Tessier is also on the way, coming from downtown, just to take a few minutes. He'll arrive as soon as he possibly can. With that, we'll begin with the adoption of the agenda. Ms. Bujaya, is there any changes to the agenda this evening?
No, Mr. Mayor, no changes to the agenda, and I'll just display the motion.
Thank you. Member of Council willing to move the adoption of the agenda as presented? Councilor McCook.
Sure, Mayor, I move that the April 18th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting agenda be adopted as presented.
Thank you, Councilor. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none from Council, will you please vote on the motion? Oh, there it is. And that carries unanimously from those in attendance. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is the adoption of the minutes of the Committee of the Whole of March 21st, 2023. Is there a member of Council willing to move the adoption of the minutes from March 21st of 2023? Councilor Miller, Ashley, you have the floor.
Sure. Mayor, I move that to March 2021, that March 21st, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes be adopted as presented.
Thank you, Councilor. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, would you please vote on the motion before you? That carries unanimously. Thank you. I forget to remember that we are committee members, not council members tonight, right? We're committee members. So gotta remember that we are committee members. So thank you, committee members, for voting on that. I keep thinking we're council, but it's Tuesday the 3rd. So, all right. Next on our agenda is the presentation and delegations. First up, and the only one on our agenda this evening is 4.1 Social Master Plan Update. Ms. Williston, are you presenting yourself? You have oh, you're both presenting. Okay, awesome. Would you please state your name clearly for the record? And let me find the microphone for you there. Okay, why is it not coming on? Oh, there it is. Okay, and the floor is yours after you introduce yourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you, your Mayor and Council. My name is Kim Williston, and I am the Community and Social Development Director. And with me, I have...
Hi, Mayor and Council. I'm Christy Starling, the Supervisor with Family and Community Support Services and Social Development.
So the purpose of tonight's presentation is to provide Mayor and Council with updates on the progress of the Social Master Plan. So the Our Inclusivity Social Master Plan. As most of you are aware, the Social Master Plan was developed back in 2019. And that plan was developed and led by the Community and Social Development Department. And the vision or the goal of it was to look at social supports and programming as they exist currently and into the future for 10 years. So that plan's actually a 10-year plan. And we have come back and provided an annual report to Council at Committee of the Whole. You may remember last year we did a department update. And so we just did a little bit of an edition of the Social Master Plan, a few brief highlights. But today we wanted to go into a little bit more detail. And I know that you all have the package in front of you. So Christy and I are here really to sort of summarize, look at some of the highlights, provide some additional context for you. Having said that, just to remind Council that this isn't an FCSS update. I know when people see me in front of Council, they think FCSS. And I just want to remind you that we'll be focusing on the Social Master Plan tonight. However, having said that, I'm going to be back in front of you in May with the EDI framework, and then I'm going to be back in front of you in June with some key initiatives updates, which will focus a little bit on maybe youth center, FCSS, affordable housing, some of the other strategies we're working on. But for the purposes of this presentation, it is social master plan updates. So if we can turn, oh, we do the slides, you don't do them. Sorry about that. Okay, we'll go to the next slide, and let's see if I get this right. Yes. I'm not very tech savvy, just saying. I'll get this on the second, third slide in. So, so tonight's presentation. So as I said, we're here to provide some updates. I think the importance of this plan is that this plan, although it's led by community and social development, it takes the whole organization, it takes the whole community. And so what you will have seen in the appendix is an update from not only my department, but also some of the other departments in the organization. So reach out to them on an annual basis to see what's happening in their department as it aligns with the social master plan and the recommendations that are in the social master plan. So it's a very collaborative process that we have here. So, oopsie, there you go. Darn. So the next couple of slides focus on highlights. I'm not going to read them all. However, with one caveat, I'm going to read the highlights and provide some information on the community social development. And then there's a couple of little highlights from the other departments that I just want to bring to your attention as well. So we'll start with the community and social development department. So one of the highlights on there, Robin Hood Association. So Robin Hood Association is a fabulous nonprofit association that are based in Sherwood Park. Some of you might be familiar with them. And they provide support to parents and their families with disabilities. We have never had Robin Hood in this community provide programming. Their services are so well sought after that generally they've gone to Leduc and some of the bigger communities. But after a little bit of negotiation and, you know, letting them know that certainly Beaumont residents require these types of specialized services, we were able to negotiate to get them out here for one morning a week. And I think what is really special about this is a partnership with the after school care site. So they come one morning a week and then they provide programming to, I think it's about 10, 12 families and their children. And that level of support has never been offered in this community. The group, needless to say, is full. It was full pretty much the day the registration went out. So the desire is that we would be able to get them to come out maybe another morning, another afternoon a week. However, recognizing their resources are finite as well, but that certainly is a goal. It is free as well to residents. So most of the programs that we try to promote are barrier access free, cost free. So really quite excited. I think you're going to hear a little bit more about that as we go through the next year or two and how we're going to develop that out. So I think Christy, I'll hand over the next ones to you.
Thanks, Kim. So just touching on equity, diversity, and inclusion, we're excited to report that we've been working with Level Up Consultants. They have completed the engagement process of the framework. So thank you to everyone who took the time to participate. That was wonderful. We've received the first draft of the framework, which again was really exciting. We're just working through right now and working on the first phase of revisions. So we're hoping to have the completed document back to us probably within the next 2 weeks. And we're looking forward to sharing that. It will be an external facing document. We will be back next month to update you further on equity, diversity, inclusion, and the framework as a whole. So stay tuned because we'll be back with more information for you. Shifting to intergenerational legacy project. That is a project we received a federal grant for. We received a grant for almost $22,000. It's really exciting because it spanned across 6 individual projects, which all had individual themes. The themes included promoting meaningful connections and building community. We were very happy to report that we had over 300 Beaumont participants in total take place in this project. And to commemorate the project, we're having an event next week, and we will have a book available to participants, members of council and mayor, and also at the Beaumont Library. So I'll pass it back to Kim for your circle thrift.
So next one is the one that I'm very passionate about. I think most of you know the Community Circle Thrift Center and the Satellite Food Bank. It is a dream that certainly I have personally had, and so as the food bank director for many years. And the social master plan what gave us the mechanism to be able to get the support to move this forward, and consequently get the support from council to help this initiative. So it's open. It's open. The store's been open for 2 weeks. I actually worked on Saturday in there, and as my second job, and as a volunteer to just help out to see what it was like. I'm so pleased. This is such an asset for the community. We didn't have anything like this in the community. Residents that are lower income were basically forced to go into Edmonton, to Leduc, and that's a barrier for people. So having both the thrift store here and the satellite food bank, I think is a real feather in Beaumont's cap. Having said that, the reality is the store and the location that we're in is a lot smaller than we wanted. Rent's high in Beaumont, so a lot of retail space available, but it's at top dollar. And this is a nonprofit group with a board who, just don't have the funding to be putting out on big rent. So the space is smaller. It's beautiful. It's mighty. Some of you will see it tomorrow at the grand opening. Having said that, though, it is small. The food bank that we envisioned and some of the programming that we envisioned, we've had to condense. So it will be a satellite food bank, which ultimately means that residents can do intakes for food hampers over the phone with the food bank. And then those hampers are being delivered to the satellite location. And then an appointment is made by the resident or residents to pick up their hamper from that location. There is a separate entrance to the west of the building, because we're very conscious with confidentiality, that we want people to, it needs to be respectful and comfortable for people to access. So it's a little bit scaled down, but you will get to see when you're there tomorrow or whenever the flavor and what we're trying to create. And I know I saw Councillor Barnhart there on Saturday. Yeah, I offered her a job and her husband bought something, so it was a good day. So you're going to hear a lot more about that, but I won't go on any longer. I'm going to pass it over to Christy to talk about Men's Shed just a little bit further.
Thanks, Kim. So just to touch on the Men's Shed program, we're really excited to have opened a Beaumont chapter. So with Men's Shed, it's actually scaled after an existing program, but Beaumont is now owner to their own chapter as well. We recently secured a startup grant of $1,000 to get the group running. We've built capacity in the sense that we had one of our coordinators take the program on, but we've already had many volunteers who are involved and have taken the lead. We have a temporary board formed, and our membership currently sits at 54 members, which is pretty good. Approximately 20 members are attending regularly, and meetings are currently taking place twice a month with additional meetings and projects as needed. And it's taking place at the community center. So we're really excited. We're still in the infancy of what Men's Shed is, but we're very excited to see what it continues to grow into.
And also building on that a little bit, because we love capacity building. That's what we're all about. Members of the Men's Shed and the Men's Shed chair, Michael, did provide some volunteer support to the thrift store. So a lot of the foundational work, so whether it was the painting, some of the electrical, building shelves, that was volunteers from the Men's Shed. So, I mean, again, to us, that's beautiful, right? We love that alignment of groups coming together to support each other. So again, just another highlight. Moving forward, you can see we did gather the highlights from the other departments. We're not going to read them through by any means. There's a lot of content here to digest. You've all had it. But there are a couple that we just wanted to draw your attention to as they relate to social master plan. They relate a little bit to the equity, diversity, inclusion piece that our department is also championing. So one of the highlights, I think, is, and council very much had a hand in this, was that residents now that are on AISH now receive access to recreation programs and services. So I know that was very much supported by council, and it makes a difference. It makes a difference in individuals' lives, and we see that because those are some of the residents that we serve. So I really think that that has been a win-win and a really, really good thing for the community. So just wanted to highlight that. I know Christy wants to highlight something under communications as well. So.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. Just continuing on with the equity, diversity, and inclusion theme. One of the highlights that came from the communications department is that they've been able to build relationships with multicultural media outlets. That was really beneficial for many reasons. It was a great way for us to open up the floodgates to invite multicultural folks in to participate in the engagement piece of the equity, diversity, and inclusion framework. We were also able to bring our consultants in to meet with the communications department and really touch on the EDI content that has been created and since published on our website. So that was a really great takeaway from 2022. And again, we hope to continue to build that page. And as the framework is completed and finalized, build some of those findings in and continue that good work.
And then another highlight from People Services, as you can see there, is that now as a result of the social master plan recommendations and some of the subsequent EDI work, People Services are now training all employees in the organization on truth and reconciliation. And so it is part of the onboarding program. That's a very positive thing that was not being done previously. So I think that is a very positive move and is one of many others, but I just wanted to highlight that. And then Christy, I think, is going to touch on one more highlight as it results to planning and development.
So those were yours, actually, right there.
Oh, then mine.
Yeah.
Christy isn't. I'm going to. I got my KS and my KW mixed up. So one of the other things that we partner with planning and development on is the affordable housing strategy. And so there's been a few individual initiatives and things that are going with that. And one of them that you're all aware of is the affordable housing. It's such an important initiative. And planning and development did receive a grant through CMHC, quite a sizable grant. And that is going to be put towards one part of it, a web-based mapping tool, which will allow developers to look at various sites and criteria that would be appropriate for affordable housing, which is, I think, a really important part of the strategy for affordable housing moving forward in Beaumont. Past that. You've seen the stats here, but I think highlights, we've talked about the Thrift Center. Did also want to talk to you about some of the early childhood development work that is happening. It is happening through FCSS, but it is a recommendation in the social master plan. We have a young community, council's aware of that. There are a lot of needs to be met with early childhood development. That is a cornerstone and a foundation piece of some of the work we do in my department. The stats speak for themselves. I mean, 2022, we came out of sort of that post-COVID. We were kind of straddling still the online programming. There was the fatigue with that. So then we opened it up to the in-person, one-to-one, drop-in type programs. And as you can see by some of the figures here, over 1,500 program participants. That's pretty remarkable. That's a lot of work, but it's a lot of good work. The results, the outcomes are saying that, you know, there's the increase in children's confidence, sense of belonging, all those wonderful things that we feel are so important and we like to see. I won't go too much into the youth center stats, but needless to say, mental health referrals are up. Mental health referrals are up across the whole department. Obviously, that there are many reasons for that, but we can bring that back in our next report. The other thing is that food and housing support decreased, partially due to COVID. And so when COVID was around, a lot of people were staying at home. There was food security. Then when we came out of COVID, then we saw a little bit of couch surfing and things picking up. So, but overall, that's a positive in this case for those stats to decrease. So if we wrap up over the next couple of slides, we have talked about some of the successes. We're not going to go over those all in great detail. I think there was a couple that Christy wanted to mention as they relate to her position, the EDI position.
Okay, thanks, Kim. So the first bullet is actually should be split into two. There was the recruitment of the FCSS and social development supervisor in March 2022. That's my position. I think it's going pretty well, but I may be biased. Maybe we should ask Kim. No, thanks. So the second part of that is the equity, diversity, and inclusion coordinator, which was recently hired this past January. That position has been great so far. Again, we've really been able to include that individual as part of the framework results, and it's only going to grow from here. So we'll have a more in-depth report for you next month on that. We have an age-friendly recognition that was received from the federal government, and that was based on our age-friendly strategy. Again, that's a document that we'll be updating you on as well, but that was really exciting to receive. And I'm going to pass it back over to Kim.
Okay, so I'm going to skim past that, and I'm going to get to the next steps. Oh, sorry, key items and next steps. So as we've said various times, the EDI framework will be coming back to you next month. I'm also collaborating with Cassandra Squires on the healthcare needs assessment that's currently happening in the organization. There's a website audit, and the role that Christy in our department has is looking at accessibility. Is it accessible? Is it readable, language, those sort of things? So we have a role in that. We're also going to bring back those reports that we have mentioned to you, and there are a couple of others in there which you can also read. I won't go over those. And I realized that we've probably taken enough time, so I'd like to open it up to questions.
Thank you for the presentation, much appreciated. And with that, council, questions for our presenters on the social master plan. Just a quick question. Did Councilman Newkirk by any chance come on Zoom? I wasn't aware. He said he might, depend on a couple of variables, so he's not signed on. Okay, good. Don't want to miss him. Thanks. If he's in the background. Councilor Barnhart, Kathy. Committee member, you have
committee member.
Member.
Yes, thank you, Chair of the committee / Mayor. Good evening, ladies. Thank you very much. It is a tad overwhelming to read all of the information that you have here. And I glom on this stuff, so I usually have an easier time, but there's a lot there. And I appreciate all that you're doing. And I understand the difference between the FCSS. However, there's so much of this is prevention, and that is FCSS. So yeah, we could probably debate that. Anyway, the question I wanted to ask was around the welcoming service. Because I did see in there, as you know, that's one of the issues I brought forward a number of years ago when the welcome wagon left our city, and we replaced it with basically a letter from the mayor and referrals to your department. It says there'll be enhancements. So are you in a position to be able to give me any further information on where we might see that going in the future?
Okay, through the mayor to Councillor Barnhart, absolutely. So the welcome services and the newcomer piece we're combining, and that is actually going to fall under the EDI coordinator's role, because that's about inclusivity. And so we do have some ideas. I can't share them all with you tonight, but we know that the letter is one step. We like it. We want to build on the letter, but we definitely have some other ideas that factor in the website and how we work with newcomers to welcome them into the community. And so, yeah, there's a few things
Just
that are
things in
going
the
to be
works, so-
happening. Yes, there are.
You'll be bringing back more when the EDI.
When we do an update, absolutely,
for that?
for sure.
Mayor, could I ask another? And by the way, these are coming from people that have contacted me as well. So there is interest in the community and continuing with that work. So I want you to know where that's coming from. Working with disabled adults, I was approached as well by an organization that's looking at trying to satellite here as well, another nonprofit. So I know Robin Hood is one of those organizations, but there are others. And there are probably people who would set up organizations if they knew that there was some support for that or some incentives to do so. The need is here for disabled adults, not just for recreation, but for living support services. And I know you know that probably better than I do. Just wondering, do we anticipate any type of social support granting for organizations or anything like that that might help organizations to locate here? I know working with other organizations, other municipalities, that makes sense. But at some point, they're going to want some funding from this municipality because they're being funded from another municipality. And we know the people who use the service can't afford to pay. So I'm just wondering if any of that is on the horizon in terms of grants for organizations.
So through to Councillor Banhart, are you suggesting that we would be granting monies to them, or as through the FCSS grant program,
Well,
or just in general?
Well, social services in general, because I know the difference between what can and can't be in FCSS. From a preventive standpoint, when it comes to working with disabled adults, obviously that's beyond the prevention, that's supporting them, social support. I do know there are organizations that receive grants from the City of Edmonton. I'm not sure about City of Leduc. I don't know others outside of FCSS. And I just wonder whether that's, maybe it's through our community grants and that's the direction we focus, but wonder if you've given that any thought.
So I'm going to suggest to you, now that we have FCSS and we have the social development service area, which, as you know, is fairly new to the department, that does give us the ability, because we don't have that strict mandate, as you have suggested, through FCSS, to explore those opportunities which we didn't have before. I would say the one caveat to that is we only have one staff member in social development, and that is the EDI coordinator. So there obviously are some capacity issues that go around that, that have to play into that. Having said that, we do work with PDD, persons with developmental disabilities. We have worked with links in Leduc. And so certainly I would say it's on the radar as a topic of need for the community. The EDI piece recognizes that as well, the disability piece. It's what the capacity is. So I would suggest to you that we are aware of it. Do we have a plan quite yet? No, but it does fall under that EDI umbrella. So my assumption is moving forward, as we sort of really delve into that, we'll start to develop some actions around that. So it's definitely on the radar.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think the social development aspect is something that's, it's tricky, isn't it? Because it's giving support to organizations, but the funding doesn't come from there. The funding has to come from other orders of government. So yeah, I'll be looking forward to supporting you in that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Committee Member McCook. Kat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is clearly a very intricate master plan. It looks like there's been some really good progress. Obviously, COVID maybe hindered some of that, but overall, a lot of great work here in our community. A lot of great initiatives like the Truth and Reconciliation training as part of onboarding is a great one, and happy to see that all playground renewal programs will also include accessible elements. Those are really great to see. Just a few questions. Can you expand a little bit on the kind of programming the Robin Hood Association provides for children with disabilities?
Through the mayor to Councillor McCook. I don't know that I can give explicit details as to what their curriculum is, but I would say basically it is to provide those specialized supports that currently don't exist in Beaumont. So children with special needs require a lot more intensive support. And so it's basics such as even like fine motor skills, gross motor skills, because this is 0 to 6 as well, remember. So this is our little ones. So it's talking fine motor, gross motor, socialization skills. It's talking to a certain extent school readiness, but what is school readiness for a child with a disability? So it's some of that foundational work that is happening in those groups, and support to parents. That is not an easy job. So it's you know, parents with other parents, learning, sharing successes and struggles as well. So I think there's that peer support as well that's really important for that group in particular.
Great, thank you. I think, you know, any opportunity to be able to expand that, as you said, would be extremely beneficial in our community. Can I roll with a few questions?
Please.
Thank you. You have on here that the youth services are growing in demand, is exceeding capacity, and hours need to be expanded. What does that look like, and what would be required for this?
In respect to just in general, or sorry, in general? So what does that look like? We do have a plan, and that will come forward as part of the budget process for 2024. And so we have certainly identified areas that we need to enhance, we need to grow. So I will suggest to you that you can expect to probably see some things in that budget, because we are very aware that we don't have the capacity, given the growth, and I would say complexity of needs. I think that's the key piece right now. You know, obviously mental health is huge. It's huge. We see it in the media, we see it in the news. It's not just mental health, it's multifaceted. So there are many elements that contribute to that, or actually are on top of that. And so we're finding that, okay, just when we think we've got ahead of one, it's like, oh no, there's another piece of this. And so I would say it's that complexity that it is not forcing us, but we need to be able to respond to that. And so our capacity we're small, we're mighty, but we're small. So I would say probably budget 2024.
Good. Thank you. That's a little bit what I was looking for. In regards to mental health, since you mentioned that, I know much of the responsibility falls on the province, and the province to offer some of that, and we just aren't getting that support. What would be the best way for us as a city to offer some mental health services or mental health support? Or does that specifically kind of mandate fall under the province, and we'll just advocate and support as best as possible?
Again, there's several pieces to that question, Councillor McCook. I would suggest to you that it falls to the province primarily. However, FCSS certainly has a role in the prevention side of it. What is happening, though, is that the province isn't accepting their role in it as they really should. They're not putting the resources into it at the community level. I would say at the community level is probably where the resources are missing. As a result, FCSS is doing the triage piece, because that's what we do. We do the triage with social workers. We're not therapists, but we can certainly help support while people are waiting their 6, 8, 12 weeks to get a community appointment. Now, that is a problem. Anybody that is waiting 8 weeks or longer to get in to see a therapist, that moves from then prevention potentially into crisis, into a whole myriad of other social issues and supports. So I think for us, the Intercity Forum on Social Policy, of which you are a member, certainly is a good vehicle provincially to bring that issue forward to the provincial level. I also know at the FCSS level, there's advocacy that happens. I mean, everybody needs to take a role in this. This is not just one committee, one individual's responsibility, whether that's council, Intercity Forum, FCSS's, Alberta municipalities. I think this is really something that is at the forefront. We see it. Everybody sees it now, whereas it was something that people in the helping profession were seeing and working with daily, but we see the escalation in the news. That I don't need to belabor that. So I think it's a concerted effort. I think there are many regulations, bodies, provincial, local, municipal, that really need to get behind this. And I certainly know through the Intercity Forum on social policy, it is one of their priorities, and it is a priority for FCSS as well. So we can't stop. We have to advocate. We absolutely do. I would say mental health right now at the community level is verging on crisis. It seriously is.
Thank you for that. I'm not sure if you've kind of gone down that path, but potentially there's something that we could look at prior to budget to come together with something as in regards to what the city can do in regards to that. Just one more. FCSS said that they'd like to see local businesses, including the city, review hiring practices to consider hiring more people with disabilities in work placement, summer employment, and permanent employment. I completely agree. I think the rise in remote work saw a lot more people with disabilities become employed, which was really great to see. So I don't know why we would be any different. How could we promote more of this? Obviously, within the city, we could do it, but you mentioned local businesses in our communities. So how could we go about doing that?
Well, I would suggest, well, through the organization, obviously People Services is very aware of this and is making strides towards that. But in the community with local businesses, I think the Chamber of Commerce is an excellent place to start to have that conversation with, are you an equitable employer? I think it has to really start at that level. And what does equity mean? I think there also needs to be that conversation about equity. What does that look like? And also, there are so many benefits from employing people with disabilities. And I just don't know why we haven't embraced that. As a community and as businesses, I think there's huge opportunities there. I think we have a community that's receptive. I think through the work we're doing on EDI, and that is community external facing, I think there's an opportunity for education to support that piece. So not sure exactly what it looks like right now, but it is part of the EDI framework. So I'm very confident that there will be some sort of recommendations coming out of that.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. I think that you hit the nail on the head when you said the education piece as well. I think just more of that will help people to make those decisions. Just a side note, and then I'm done, Mayor. We talk a lot about, and I often see references to aging in place. And I think that's sometimes something we need to push back on developers with. Just because, I know a lot of people who are kind of that 60s, 70s, and maybe some really healthy people in their 80s who are looking for the smaller bungalows and not the 2 stories, not to do the stairs, and potentially not executive type bungalows either. And so I think I know I've said this before, but I just think that's a really important piece in regards to housing and stuff like that we're missing for seniors in our community. So that was more just a comment more than anything, but something I think we should be wary of. So thank you very much. And that's all my questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee Member Miller. Ashley, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies, for being here tonight. I'm on with the trend of there's a whole lot of content here. Certainly didn't have time to dissect it like I would have wanted to. First of all, I have a couple questions and then I have a couple comments. So the first question is that I noticed in 2021, there was an interest in seeking out a mental health and wellness committee. Can you just provide an update on where you're at with the committee, or was it shelved because of COVID? Where are we at?
Yes, thank you. Your mayor through to Councillor Miller. That was a discussion that came from the Beaumont Interagency group. So when the social master plan was being developed, that was one of the ideas that came from one of the focus groups. And so the Beaumont Interagency group were like, yeah, this makes sense. This makes sense for our community. And then COVID hit. And so the Beaumont Interagency group met a little less. They generally meet 3 or 4 times a year. They're probably meeting once or twice a year. I'm not saying that got shelved, but it did get pushed to the side. But realizing that there is definitely some work to be done in that area, So no, nothing has been done yet, but I think this really aligns very well with the work that the organization is currently doing on attracting, whether it's medical clinic, health services to this community, because one of the recommendations with that is to have some sort of committee with PCN physicians, that sort of thing, so that there is definitely an alignment there that that we could definitely look at building on. At that time when we did this, ours was more focused on health and well-being, working with more mental health providers, Alberta Health Services, some of our local service providers. But I think there's a bit of an opportunity here with the work that we're doing with the rest of the organization to
Right.
expand that, quite
Okay.
frankly.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, I guess, where I'm coming from when I ask those kinds of questions, because kind of back, or like piggybacking off of Councillor Barnhart, the welcome wagon or welcoming to Beaumont, having a health and mental health and wellness committee, like all these pieces for me are what I'm kind of seeing as benefits for the awareness around what is offered in our city. And that's just what I'm thinking as what I'm observing. But I mean, I would like to hear more from you guys in front of us. And I'll tell you, when we were doing budget this year, I had a hard time determining, what's the alternative when we're deciding against protective services per se versus mental health. We see the statistics and that mental health is very much on the incline. And, that's one of the contributing factors to our crime stats in our city. But then on the other hand, we didn't have anything in front of our face saying, no, we need this in place for mental health versus, protective services. So that's where I'm coming from. And it's like, I see this massive, documents of all these initiatives and all these things that I think would benefit our city. I don't know what that path forward looks like. I want to be a part of it. You mentioned, it's more of a provincial, local, it's all the pieces together. So for me, I know a lot of it lies on the province, but us as councillors, what can we do? And I feel like you guys need to hammer that into us and get us on board, because we are on board with that. It's just that when we don't have it in front of our faces and we're not aware of it, it's like, how can I just say, I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. So I want to contribute, we all do, to the mental health of our residents as we see that it's on the incline. Just tell us what that looks like. And one last comment is, I've just personally dealt with residents that have reached out saying, maybe having some struggles or want to know certain things. And it's like, where can they find that information? Maybe it's there. And that's where I think like the welcome wagon or the committee or something would really benefit them to know the direction and hopefully, help these things on the decline a little bit, right? So anyways, that's all I have. Thank you so much for coming.
No problem. Thank you. Additional questions from council for our presenter this evening on the social master plan? One quick question. You mentioned the welcome letter earlier part of the discussion.
Mhm.
So is the welcome letter ready to go, or it's still being tweaked a little bit? I thought you said, just to clarify.
So the welcome letter is on hold
Okay.
because we're waiting for the EDI framework, and we're going to build that into like our welcome services, newcomers type
Right.
services. So
Okay.
you will, and it needs to be updated, Mayor. I mean, to be honest with you, it needs a little bit of a tweak. So
Yeah.
you will see it.
Yes. Appreciate that. Thank you. Seeing no further questions from our presenters. Thank you, ladies, for coming this evening and giving us more information. It was quite a long document, a lot of information there, and it's a good thing. It get me a little reading the last couple of days. Much appreciated. With that, we'll ask for a member of council to receive the information receive the report as information. Councillor, Committee Member Miller, actually, you have the floor on the motion.
Sure, I will gladly move that the April 18th, 2023 social master plan update be received for information.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, council, would you please vote on the motion before you? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
All right, continue with our agenda this evening. Next on our agenda is number 5, councillor inquiries. Are there any councillor inquiries this evening to be brought forth for administration? Seeing none? Okay, and that brings us to item number 6, which is adjournment. So we are adjourned at 5:44. So enjoy your